All right. Very good morning, very good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Oracle Database Administration Day 2 demo session. Right. So quickly recap what we covered yesterday in few minutes, and then we'll get started with the a few more topics which are planned to cover today. And then meantime, after our demo sessions, we got couple of registration. I hope most of them I have added to WhatsApp group, and by this time almost everyone got access on the Google Drive. Only few people who has joined at little late, so they are requested to stand by, and I'm gonna probably grant the access on the Google Drive after this today's session. Right. So with that, I can quickly uh, glance or cover what we covered in our yesterday's demo session one. So we started with the introduction about your instructor, that is me. I briefed about my overall IT experience and my areas of expertise, and along with the database as a primary key skills, what other key skills I have it. So basically, I covered about myself, and then what are my key areas and what are my key strengths. All has been covered in yesterday's session, and followed by we talked about the course curriculum. So we briefed in detail about the course curriculum, what will be covered in this course, and there are totally 25 chapters which will be covered in this course, database course, and then followed by three extra sessions based on uh, previous students' feedback. We have included them: resume writing, cover letter, and interview questions, and Oracle exam preparations, and then the mock interview. Right, this will be included here along with the course. That is about the course curriculum and the course content what we covered yesterday. So again, I'm not going to brief all of them. You can watch previous recorded session, or if you have any particular questions or concerns or queries on the course curriculum, you can feel free to unmute yourself or ask in this chat here, or even you can reach out to me on my WhatsApp number, or you can call me, or you can send me an email. So I'm happy to discuss and happy to clarify all your questions or concerns or queries, whatever you have it on this particular course curriculum, right? One strongest point on this course curriculum, as I said yesterday, this course curriculum is formed based upon my 15 years of experience. If you're working as a Oracle DBA for a particular client or any client, what is needed as a DBA, you are going to work day in and out. What are the expected activities? What are your roles and responsibilities? Based upon that, this particular course curriculum is formed. Right. Along with this, if there's any extra topics like OEM, Golden Gate, and Exadata, some of the basic stuffs, so those will be covered as a extra topic after the course based upon everyone interest. Right. So that's about the course curriculum what we covered. And I request everyone to go through this blog, malik034blogspot.com, database-training.html, which will take you to that course curriculum page. And then followed by yesterday and today are the two scheduled demo sessions. What we are covering, these are the public demo sessions which will be publicly available for everyone. And then starting with 22nd Jan, Monday, that's where we are going to start our actual classes. And yesterday 18th Jan and today 19th Jan, Thursday and Friday are two demo sessions, followed by Saturday, Sunday, no classes. And Monday is a one where we are going to start the actual classes, and the class timings are going to be remain same, 8 a.m. IST to 10 a.m. IST, 2 hours every day, Monday to Friday. And again, there's a little confusion for the Eastern time zones, guys. So the timing is going to be 9:30 p.m. EST to 11:30 p.m. EST in the Eastern time zone, and the days are going to be not on Monday to Friday. For the Eastern time zone, it's going to be Sunday to Thursday, and Friday, Saturday, no classes for them. That's a conversion between IST to EST. Please note that. And then course duration will be of 35 days, will be able to complete entire course by 35 days. That's the max. And again, this is a paid training. Course fees is 10,000 Indian rupees or 125 US dollar. The classes will be conducted in the Zoom session or the Teams or WebEx. We're going to share it to all the registered students in our WhatsApp group. And then the version 19C will be covered in this particular course. Right. So for all the, that's about the course duration and the course timing and the course curriculum, what we covered in brief in yesterday. And then this is just a glance, just did it today. And then whatever the registered student, by this time, everyone are added to our WhatsApp group. Those are dedicated WhatsApp group only for the registered students. And that's the only group or that's the only mode of communication. We'll be asking any questions, queries, or whenever you stuck with any task or activity, you can just take a screenshot and post it over there. Anyone can answer. If no one can answer, I'll be there to always assist you. That's that's how the communication works in the our dedicated WhatsApp group. And then so the registered students already got access on the Google Drive where you can get all the PPTs, workbook, course materials, all the softwares, all the patches, all the ready labs, and all the previous batch recording, and then this current ongoing batch recordings. All will be available in the Google Drive, so you can always watch them. And if you want to prepare well in advance in a fast track mode, you can always go back to the previous batch recordings. You can watch them. Go, those are live sessions. A lot of interactions will be there in that. Many people will be asking questions, queries. We'll be discussing all of them. So you can prepare well in advance by watching those previous batch recordings and then get ready for these live classes. Or in the live classes, you can always have a chance to interact, ask questions, queries. And even after completion of the class, you have the dedicated WhatsApp group. You can always post your questions or queries. All will be like all these kind of benefits or make use of our mode of communication through WhatsApp group. Right. So again, the coming back to that Google Drive, so we'll be pretty much getting these 4 links: the course materials, the other information which includes your softwares and other stuff, and the previous batch recordings and the current batch recordings. Right. So those will be getting access. So I hope everyone got access on the Google Drive now for all the registered students. And as I said, only few students who are registered at the late, so they will be getting access by today, EOD. And then the regular classes, which will be starting on Monday. I'm going to share the Zoom links or the Teams or WebEx in our WhatsApp group. So we can use that one for the entire course. So we'll be communicating in our WhatsApp group. Right, and then already WhatsApp group are created and then all the students are added over there. And one of the prerequisites what we discussed yesterday is about what is needed, who can all attend this course. So anyone, irrespective of whatever years of experience you have it, you are a newcomer to this Oracle world or a college passed out, or you are coming from the different background or the different technology, or you already have 5 years or 10 years of experience, doesn't matter. Anyone can join this course because this course, as I told, it is formed such a way that which covers from basics from the beginner till advanced level. So as a DBA, if you're working for any client, what is your roles and responsibilities? What is your expected to do day in and out? Everything will be considered and formed this particular course curriculum. So anyone can attend. But if you have the little bit knowledge on the Linux, Windows, and networking, that is fair enough. That's good enough. You will understand this course easily and you will be up to date and you will be able to catch up the content quickly. If you don't know these basics, so you're gonna struggle a little bit because understanding of the basic commands, cd, mkdir, cat, vi, those are like mandatory things. And if you don't know them, so you're gonna little be lagging in the course and you'll not be up to date and you'll not be able to catch up the things. But you have to spend some extra time and Google it and then learn the Linux command, learn the networking basic commands. And then once you're able to start understanding them, you can revisit and rewatch all the recorded sessions, and then you will be able to catch up the things. That challenge will be there for the newcomers, but whatever the basics needed for this particular course will be covered along with each topic. All the commands, explanation will be given. So somehow you can manage to catch up the things now. But in order to become more expert or in order to become practice more and more, so you have to first learn these basic fundamentals like SQLs, how we can write a SQL query or syntax, basic syntax, how we can make use of the basic Linux command. Those are mandatory things. And then on top of that, one of the primary, preliminary, very most important feature requirement is your laptop or desktop, whatever you are using, that should have minimum of 10 GB RAM and 100 GB SSD hard disk, so that you can able to set up your own lab on your laptop or desktop using Oracle VirtualBox. So that's a very mandatory things. If you don't have, then you will not be able to set up a lab. And if you are not able to set up a lab, then you will not be able to practice it. So you just need to listen to what I'll teach, and you should just see what I'm gonna demonstrate on the lab. So that's not gonna help you to become a strong in this particular DBA field, because what I believe is as much as you can practice, that much of strong in that particular topic, that much of strong you're gonna understand in that particular content. So the practice is the only way we can remember the things and getting stronger in that particular topic, and you'll never forget it once you practice it. But reading, listening, and seeing, you can easily forget in within a week or within a month. But once you do a practice, you'll never forget the things. Even though you forget it, you will be able to recollect it with one single keyword or some hints. You will be able to recollect entire topics what you practiced, right? So that's the important thing. So make sure that you have this minimum hardware requirement. And then followed by, we started with some of the topics. Yesterday we covered about type of standalone databases, type of rack databases, and what's the advantages and disadvantages of standalone versus rack, and what are the advantages within the standalone server. We have a standalone server without ASM, standalone server with ASM, and then how you can differentiate with ASM and without ASM, how you can check whether my database files are in the file system or in the ASM, how can I connect to my database, how can I connect to my ASM. All those content are topics we covered yesterday, and followed by, we're going to cover a few more topics for today. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to give few minutes. If anyone has any questions or queries, feel free to unmute and ask. It may be anything related to course curriculum or the course content, course duration, or any of that. If you have, like, you just unmute, and then, or you can use this chat window and then post it over here. I can see few questions I can answer in a while, but yeah, I can feel free to ask any questions. One question I can see here, I missed yesterday's demo. Because of Eastern time zone, yes, that's a confusion. Um that's Thursday and Friday for IST, and then in Eastern time zone, it's going to be Wednesday and Thursday. That's I'm really sorry for that. So this feedback, I got it yesterday itself. Probably going forward, I can clearly call out the Eastern time zone dates and days, so that you won't miss it in future dates. So previous batch for 19C, yes. So all the previous batches are covered is for 19C. Few of them are 12C. So you'll be getting access on the previous batch 19C, and then you can study well in advance. All right. And then again, going with the same content, I'm gonna post my in the chat window. If anyone like other questions comes uh, for the payment procedures, and how can I register this particular course. So you can feel free to ping me on my WhatsApp +919880616848, or you can drop me an email mallikarjun.ramdurg@gmail.com. I can get in touch with you, or one of my assistant will get in touch with you for further registration process and further payment process. And we have different options for students. So we will discuss one-to-one. I'm gonna ping my email ID or the WhatsApp number. You can reach out to me on that. All right. So if no questions, I'll just proceed further with a few more topics for today. The very first topic I'm going to talk about connectivity. So connectivity, basically, the question comes how DBA connect to database, and the question comes how um, developer or testing team connect to database, or end user or apps user connect to database. And that's different users and different use cases. Your developers are testing users or going to connect to database to do certain activities. All your end users are apps users, or you can say business users connect to your database. So there's a different use case. So if I can draw that, let's say I have this server, my DB database is running on this server. Doesn't matter your database is residing under file system or ASM. We already talked on that. But your database will be running on any one of the server. Let's say your database is running under Oracle Lab 1. This is a server Oracle Lab 1 where your DB database is running. So let's say you have some clients. Right, so different clients. Let's say you have one more server here, Oracle Lab 2, and we have client desktop. So they have client desktop. They'll connect from this desktop. They have client web. The client is anything. It may be your end users or the business users or your developers or testing users. And the client desktop, they might be using something called Toad or SQL developer, any application. So in this client desktop, they install this software called Toad software, SQL developer software, or OEM. It may be anything. They install that software. Through that software, they're trying to connect to database. And this particular client, the end users are the client, meaning anything like end users or business users or retail users. I'm one of the retail user. I can access my Walmart application. I'm a retail user. I can access my Flipkart application. I'm one of the end users. I can access my um, Amazon app for any business or any transaction or purchasing any product. So I can use you application. Any apps, I can download apps in my mobile or desktop. I can use that one. And again, the end users client, I can use URL. I can go to Amazon.com, Flipkart.com, Walmart.com. I'll go to that respective online retail URL, and then I can purchase whatever product I wanted. Right. So it may be various methods. All are going to connect to my database. Right. So that's how it works. So all with the different various application, they're going to connect to my database. But in order to connect to database, what they should have? They should have the respective user ID and password should be created inside my database. Let's say I'll not talk about let's say I'll talk about this portion little bit later. Let's talk about this first section. I have this Oracle Lab 1 internal server. I have this Oracle Lab 2 again internal server, and in this Lab 2 where all your developers or testing users have access on this server, and then this desktop client SQL developer Toad or VM where all your developer, like again here I can say developers or testing users or a DBAs, right? Any DBA connected to this lab to this server, or any developer connected to this lab to, any testing user connected to this lab to, or any DBA connected to this lab to, they can able to connect to the database. For that, they should have very first thing username and password. Inside my database, they should have username and password. Without that username and password, I'm talking about this very first connection from one server to other server. From the lab to, I want to connect to my dev database. So I should have that username and password in the first place. And followed by what should I have it? And I should know whatever this Oracle Lab 2 or Lab 1, my database server host name or IP address, where your database is running. My database DB is running under Oracle Lab 2 or IP address of that Oracle Lab 2. I should know that host name or IP address of my database server. And then what else? I should know on which port my database is running. On which port? Typically, the port 1521 is my port. Your database is registered. So you can have it 1522, 1523, 1524. You can put whatever port you want it. Again, we'll cover that how we can configure these ports and all in listener. Via listener, that will be part of one of our topic in our regular classes, the Oracle networking, where we talk about listener, TNS and all. So on which port my database is running, that we should understand. And then on which protocol your database is listening, right? So there should be a protocol, UDP or TCP or TSL, SSL connection. You should define the protocol on which protocol your database has to listen, right? Once you know this on which protocol your database is listening, on which port your database is running, what is the database server IP address and host name, and then you know your username and password inside database, username and password inside database. You should have first username and password inside database. DBA is going to create. And last thing is the database name or service name. If you know all these five stuffs, and then you can able to connect from this Oracle Lab 2 or any of this application server to your database, right? So very first thing, I should have a username and password. I can quickly go ahead and then create one dummy username called user1 or Oracle, I can say Vara user1, password by Vara user1. So I can create one username and password, Vara user1, Vara user1. So let's quickly go ahead and then create in my dev database. Again, I'm going to talk about that. There's a different way where DBA we connect in the different manner. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, I can quickly create one dummy user. So right now I connected to my database, a DB database, and then I can quickly create dummy user, create user for a user one identified by for a user one. Right, so I have created a brand new user, but this user is just a user inside my database. He does not have any single privileges. Right, let's quickly go to lab 2, and then in the lab 2 I'm going to uh, set this some environmental variable. That's it's not a test DB, so I set just a uh, environmental variable here. Let's quickly brief you on that. So now I'm into this lab 2. Let me make it as a red color. Right now I'm into this lab 2 here. From the lab 2, I want to connect to this lab 1 inside a DB database using this Vara user 1. So for that, I'm going to use SQL Plus is one of the tool, a built-in tool with the Oracle software. I installed Oracle software on this lab too. Because of that, I got this a built-in tool. Otherwise, you need to install whatever the tool you needed it, SQL developers or Toad or VM, whatever the tool. So now I'm going to use SQL Plus, and very first thing, I know my username and password inside my database. That will be Vara user 1 followed by Vara user 1 is my password. Username and password I know. And then at the rate, I can simply use a devdb. What is this devdb? This devdb is called a TNS alias name. So this TNS alias name, we have put this TNS alias name including all the database host name or the IP address and which port my database is running, that devdb database running. And my in this example here, my port is 1521. My host name is Oracle Lab 1, and my protocol is a TCP, and my database name or the service name is devdb slash devdb is my database name or the service name. So all of these entries I have already put into this particular a single variable that is called a TNS alias name. I'm going to show you in a minute. If I use this one and I'm able to connect from this Oracle Lab 2 to DB database, which is running under lab 1. So if I simply hit this one, it says Vara user 1 lag does not have a create session privileges, because whatever we created here, it's a brand new dummy user which does not have a single privileges. And as a DBA, I'm going to grant him grant create session to this user. So now I'm gonna grant that create session privilege to that user. And let's try it now one more time. SQL Plus is a tool. With that tool, I'm going to connect to my DB database using that same Vara user 1, Vara user 1. Now I am able to connect to a database. Even though I'm at my lab 2, I'm able to connect to a DB database, which is running under lab 1. So this is how a developer, or the testing users or the DBAs who can connect to a database from the different server within the same organization. Right, even DBA, I can connect from this particular lab to the same process with a username and password, and I can connect to DevDB. But ideally, it is meant for developers or the test users. We DBA will not connect from this lab to. We DBA will be having a direct access into my server lab 1. We'll connect to lab 1, and then once we connect to lab 1, we'll directly use something called, right now let's see here, this is our lab 1. We will connect to lab 1 directly with that Oracle user, or let's say we have a root access or we have Malik user access, or we have some common user access. First, we will connect to that Oracle Lab 1 is a source server itself where your database is running. We directly connect to that server. Only DBA will be having access on the server. No developers, no testing users, no application users, no backend users. Only DBAs will be having access on the server where your database is running. And you will be logged in with the root user or your own individual users based upon your organization. And after that, we simply do a ps-f grep smon will identify my database is running with which user, and my database is running with Oracle user. You might see in the organization this database might be running with a grid user or Vora Dev, Vora UAT, or Vora1, Vora2, or whatever the username. So you need to log into that particular user. Like you have to identify your database name or the instance name and running with which user. You have to use this switch user into that particular user, and that's going to take you to that Oracle user. And after that, we're going to run something called .vorinv, dot space vorinv, environmental variable. It's going to ask you what is your Oracle SID. DevDB is my Oracle SID. And the moment I set the environmental variable, I can verify using env pipeline grep capital Vora. So it says Oracle SID, Oracle base, Oracle home. Again, Oracle home is the same thing what we talked yesterday. It's a software you're going to install. From that, we're going to create database. We'll discuss all of them in our regular classes. So for now, as a DBA, I'll connect to that lab one. I'll log into that respective Oracle, who is the owner of the database, and I'll run this .orinv, set that respective SID, which instance I want to connect, and then I can simply use SQL plus /s sys DBA. So I'm using the same SQL plus tool, and I don't give that username and password. Directly I can connect as a sysdba. Sysdba is a super master user in my database. Like in Oracle, in Linux server, root is a master user. Similarly for Oracle database, a sysdba is a master user. So if I run this command, I can connect to my database SQL command line. As a DBA, for us it's a simple straightforward. Directly we have access on the Linux server. We'll log into that Oracle user who is the owner of the database, run this .orinv, set the environment variable, and use SQL plus / as a sysdba, will get access. But whereas any developers or testing user want to connect through any application or any other server, they have to use username, password given to them, followed by all the TNS details. The TNS details comes your database server IP address or database server host name, on which port your database is listening, on which protocol your database is running, what's your database service name and DB name. Once you know all of them, your developer will connect using that SQL plus or any Toad or OEM tool or your SQL developer with the username and password followed by that TNS alias. Right, so this TNS alias we'll talk in our regular classes. So it's about the same thing what we talked here. If I go to my TNS alias where I define this one, the variable, you can say this is a variable, kind of a variable. So that we are going to define something called TNS admin directory. That will be network admin. If I do cat TNS name.vara, so this is my DevDB alias, what I used here for the connection. And this DevDB alias, what it contains my protocol is a TCP, where your database is listening under which protocol. What is the host name where your database is installed? Oracle Lab 1 is my database name. And what is the port your database is listening? And what's the service name of your database? So that's what we defined, your database name or the service name. And 99% it will be same for the standalone databases. And which protocol your database is listening? That's a TCP. And then on which port your database is listening? That's 1521. And on which server or IP address your database is installed? That's Oracle Lab 1. And followed by your username and password, the DBA is going to create and then share with all the developers. So all these entries, we are going to keep it in this particular TNS files with this alias name. and then we're going to connect to the database, or your developers or the testing users going to connect your database using that username and password followed by that variable name. So even you can copy this entire thing and then you can put it in a double quote and you can connect your database. Right, so this is in double quote, you have to put all these entries and you can use the same command. Right, SQL plus Oracle, one of the database user and username and password. And instead of this variable, this is the variable I defined here. So I can directly give this entire double quoted string. I'll remove this DB and I can give this one. Enter it, you're going to connect your database. So that's a simple understanding. So every time the developers or the testing user has to run this username and password, at the rate he has to give that entire connection string. So that's a tedious job, giving entire details every time. So because of that, we come up with this alias naming concept, variable naming concept. You can provide whatever name you want and give all the alias description so that developers can quickly use this variable while connecting to database like Oracle username, Oracle password, and then at the rate that variable name. Right. So that's a quick understanding how a DBA can connect. DBA can connect directly from the server itself, and other testing users or developers can connect from the other server using the TNS names or the whatever the username or the password along with all these details. A DBA, we are going to share all of them. And then same thing goes for this end user here, this section I'm talking about. So this application or client web user or the uh, other client tool, what they're gonna connect. So they'll be having something called app server here in the middle. App server. So this app server will be communicating to my database internally. This app server back and forth communications will happen using a user called. Um, we are going to create one more user in my database, that is apps user followed by apps password. So we create one common user, apps user and apps password. And when they install application on this application server, and that application is going to ask what is the database username and password. That time the application team has to provide this apps user and apps password. Like how this Vora user 1, Vora user 2 we created. Similarly, this apps user and apps password as a DBA we create inside database and give it to application team. And application team will, while time of installation of application server, it's gonna ask you, okay, give me database username and password. The application team will provide this apps username and password. And at the time of the application installation, it's gonna ask the same thing. Give me the host name or IP address where your database is running. Give me on which port your database is listening. Give me on which protocol your database is listening. What's the database service name and listener, or the database name or the service name. Your application team has to give all these details at the time of application server installation. And once the application server is installed and your application server is able to communicate and talk to my database the same way how these developers are connecting. Similarly, application server also connecting here. And let's say this application server is what? Let's say Walmart, or let's say Amazon,
WebLogic.
whatever it is. Like I'm just giving a layman term example. Your application, just consider it's a Walmart application, or it's a Amazon application, or the Flipkart application, retail store. Now e-commerce one. So now as the end users, I am going to create my. I'll just connect to my web URL. I'm going to create my log into www.amazon.com, www.weblogic.com. I'll go to that retail online URL. I'm going to create my user called Malik, and then my password, because each and every users can log into their retail online web page, and then you have to create your own login account with your phone number or with your Gmail ID. The moment you create your username and password, these username and passwords are related to your application server username and password. Whatever the end users, like millions of thousands of users, what they create username and password, all those username and passwords are stored under application server. So as a me, I connect to this the URL. Let's quickly go to one of the retail URL. I'll go to Amazon India. So I'll go to online site, one of their retail site, and then I can log in. I can sign in with my own username and password. So I can create my username and password here in this application. The moment I create username and password, that username and password stored in application server, not at the database side. So again, one more user, let's say John, with his username and password, he's going to create his own account and he can log into that application server. He can log in with his own user ID and password using the mobile device or web URL or desktop client or anywhere in the world. The moment he connect, and again his username and password are stored in application server. Once after done, whether it's a Malik user or whether it's a John user or whether it's a 1 million or billions of users, all those users are stored and their password username are related to application server. It may be your WebLogic, Apache, Tomcat, anything, middleware. So from there, your application server will communicate with my database server. For that communication, it will always use that app's username and password. There will be always one application user and one application user password. And if the 1 million users are created this user ID and password all across the world, those username and passwords are stored in application layer at the application server. And whatever the transaction they will do, all the communication to database will happen through that username and password, what we created or stored inside my database. And this application users and application passwords nowhere related to my database server. Because in the world,
Malik, in real-time scenario, middleware team generally asks DBA team for this password, user ID password, while configuring
right,
JDBC.
right. So this application server will always communicate your database using a JDBC or ODBC, or there may be a soft socket. There will be different various of communication protocol. They can use it in the backend, but there will be always one username and password inside database for particular application. And if there's a 1 million end users creating their accounts, and we are not creating those 1 million account inside my database, are all application related accounts, right? So that is a high level overview how it works, right? And the moment there's a sale going on, let's say Amazon Big Billion Days or Flipkart Black Day sale, or whatever the sale happens in the retail business, and the millions of users connect to URL or application, and via application server, all the connection will go to database. And that time you can see your application users and the application passwords, you will be getting huge connection to your database, right? So one connection, one user connected to my database, one session will be started inside my database. How can I show that quickly demo? Right now in this lab one server, I can see how many processes are running for this DBA database. Right now, so many processes are running here. I can simply do grep-v grep. So right now, these many internal processes are running for my DB database. I can simply count how many processes are right now established. Right now, it's a 58. I can do a watch, and the same command, I'll put it in a watch list. Right now, it's a 58 processes are running. I'll quickly go ahead and then connect one connection here. From the lab 2, I'm going to connect Vara user 1, Vara user 1, DevDB. The moment I enter this one, automatically your connection will get increased by one process or one session. So one session created, if I go here, it'll become a 60, 58 becomes 60. Internally, it generated 2 sessions inside my database. But if I exit from this session, those sessions will be cleared out. Again, it's gonna go back to 59. And again, I can
Hello.
connect one more time. One more session will get increased. And again, if I exit from here, again the process will goes off. Right at the back end, it will be of just a connection to my database. You can have 1 million, hundreds of connection, doesn't matter. It's all concurrency. All right, somebody has a question?
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Kedar. Sir, actually, I want to know that is there any way to find out which machine is connected to the and on which
Right.
machine the process number
Right.
of processes are going on?
Right. You have an option to check it out inside database. There's a $V session. As a DBA, I can do anything. Right. I can lot of options on which IP address the connection is coming and from which user its application is connect. You can go with we describe $V session is a view. That $V session will tell you from what is the serial number, what is the SID, what is the program, and what is the machine name from where the connections are coming. So you have to query this $V session to figure it out from which application, which IP address, what's the username and password, who are connecting. All will be get from this $V session.
Okay,
All right.
okay, yeah, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Give me a second. All right.
Hey,
That's
Malik,
about
Rob
the
here. Sorry, Malik.
yeah,
So, I mean, Oracle will support that AD authentication, or it's only support that local authentication, I mean, local accounts.
right now we are just using this a plain DNS connections. Oracle will support that something called let's go here. DNS. Right. So we have something called uh, the connection to database.
Mhm.
What are the different way to connect to my database? So one is easy connect using this TCP IP, whatever the DNS thing I explained, that's a easy connect we call it as. And local naming connection. Local naming connection is nothing but your DNS admin file. So whatever I explained here, right, with the SQL plus username and password and giving all this description, it's your
Okay.
easy connect.
Mhm.
Using a TCP IP connections with a connection string. So this is my entire connection string. I'm passing all the connection string at the time of connection. That's your easy connect. And local naming is instead of writing this all the connection string, I kept all of these entries into one TNS file here, and I'm using the TNS alias name to connect. That's your local naming connection. These two are one and
Mhm.
same. Either you can use the alias name or you can pass that entire connection string. Both will work. And followed
Okay.
by we have external naming here. So you can use the direct naming where you can use your centralized LDAP connection or your AD authentication or your IAM authentication to connect your database. And you can use external naming. You can use non-Oracle, other third-party, your Active Directory connections that can be done using this external naming or this LDAP connections. All are supported. But it's very rare case where you can see your integration of your AD or any other third-party naming service in integration with the Oracle. But if it's a highly secured or banking environment, you can see this external or LDAP or AD authentication to your database. That is supported.
Okay. So, in case if you create that, I mean, if you create the new server, right? New server, new database. So, every time I have to put that entry in the TNS entries, right? So, I mean, it's
Yes,
very
it's
hard
a
to maintain that.
one-time activity. It's a one-time activity you have to create. Like it's not me. It's not me creating, right? Why I created my database here on the lab one. Again, you're missing something here. What I'm doing here, I created my database on this lab one, done. It is a TNS name. Who needs it? The client needs it, not the
Yeah.
database server. I don't need it. One-time activity, I create my database and I create my listeners, I configure it on lab one. That's my job is done. And if any new client comes, he want to connect to my database, I'll just simply give the TNS name to him. Let him save it in his machine. He can connect to my database. It is not we creating every time. It's a client for the who is coming to my organization, new client, new machine, new server. They have to install that TNS file in their machine. The TNS name is a client side machine, client side file, not on the server side. We don't need it. As the DBA, we don't need it.
Okay, got it. Okay.
All right. So now let's go back to that is our very first thing, connectivity. And now let's quickly go to the next topic. Once the connectivity is understood, I will talk about database side. That will be pretty much my database server.
Hello, Malik.
Yeah, sure. Good.
Yeah, just one question. So you said that in that application layer, that you mean to say that Walmart and Amazon that will be hosted on that application
Right.
servers.
Right.
Okay.
They will be
So
installed their application, all the configuration file, which will be pointing to my database.
so you so when client is logged into the application, so when I request any, suppose I visit any product page, so
Right.
that request will be first go to the application server, and via application server that will be go to the my dev DB, right?
Right. That's correct.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Whatever the product in the Amazon page here, what we are seeing, all these products, all these details, all this price, everything will be stored inside my database.
Mhm.
And if I click on this particular, let's say I want to see all my laptops, all my deals, all my laptop, whatever I want, like the moment I click on this, all the laptop page, what you're gonna do, you have connected to your application via application, it is connected to application server. From application server, your connection is established to database. The connection will go to database. Inside the database, we have this laptop as a table name. The laptop model, laptop configuration, laptop price, all will be displayed back to your application, like how I'm getting here, right? All these details will be inside the database in a table format. But whatever the communication happens, it has to happen through application server, because your application username and password stored under application server.
So you earlier said that our client username and password will be stored on application server. So why it's
Right.
not stored on that database itself? Because itself means there are also
If you
entries.
if you create 1 millions of users inside database, that's not
Mhm.
ease of management. Your database will be
Okay.
overloaded. So we should not create the millions of users inside database. There should be always one application users, and all the connections should be handled through application server.
Mhm. Okay, got it.
And how application server communicate to database server with any utility? Or
Again, I explained, right? They can use either with application server to database server, they can use a JDBC connection or ODBC connection or the socket files. It all depends upon what type of application it is. Mostly they use either Java connection, JDBC connection, or ODBC connection, or socket connection. All right.
yeah, thank you.
Right now, that's about the client side, and the client is connecting to my database. Now I'll forget about this client side. It's none of my business. Like like this portion, I don't need it at all. So this is nowhere come to a DBA field. My DBA job is to maintain this portion, the database server, the database, and what's my database status, and how it is performing, what's my database server load, all those things. And then we'll be having access directly to a database server. If I can go to I already in my database server, and then I can do all my admin activities. What is my database memory utilization? What is the server load? Right now it is 0.01, no load at all on my server. What's my CPU utilization? What are my process utilization? And then what are my the free space? How much free space? How much is the usage of the mount points? That is a DBA job. As a DBA, we are responsible to monitor, maintain this particular database server. We should not reach the file system usage more than 80%, 90%. We should not reach our database server load more than like whatever the threshold you can define it, 10%, 20%, 30%. Your database server should not be having any load, and you should not run out of the memory utilization on the server. That is one way of the DBA monitoring or DBA maintenance job. So we need to make sure that our database server is always having enough of memory, enough of CPU, enough of RAM, and load will be always less so that my database can run without any performance issue. That's one of the tasks. And then maintaining my database. So my database always should be up and running, and then I should be always able to connect to my database, and my database should run 24/7. And inside database, we have, again, we'll talk about in our regular classes, we have table spaces, we have users, we have data blocks, extend segment. How can I monitor all of them? And then do we have enough space on those particular, all the data files, all the table spaces, all those like our actual DBA admin activities we're going to talk about in our regular classes. And for now, quickly, I can cover two more topic for today. That is a database server architecture. Right. So just to understand, it's simple. If I go back to my diagram here, so there is a database installed on the server, and then as a DBA we created a user, and then we given it to that application team. Application team has installed their application server, and then they use that username and password. So internally they are going to use JDBC or ODBC connection to connect to my database. And at the end user, anyone can connect to that Walmart or Amazon, whatever the web application, or using a mobile application, and then the connection will be handled. That's simple. But just to say that it's just a database installed on a server, it's a quite straightforward. But this database server has a different architecture altogether. So that architecture includes, give me a second. That this database server architecture includes, let me draw here. Very first thing, instance. Again, go back here, our yesterday's where is it? Okay, here. My database server, that's the Linux server, which has the instance and which has the database. So very first thing is instance, and then database. So these database are nothing but data files or backend storage, right? In the backend storage or the data files or forms my database. So that database might be in file system or might be in ASM. I showed yesterday the data file location, ASM and file system, how it one differs. That's the state for data files gone. So what is its instance? So if I do this PS-FNAF, it always show that a DevDB as an instance. So this instance is a logical entity, and this instance is basically made up of memory plus your BG process. So memory allocation plus background process combining together will form this particular instance. And again, in this memory, we have SGA, shared memory, that's a shared global area or system global area, plus a PGA, program global area or private global area. That's about memory. And then this BG process This BG process, background process, we have mandatory background process plus non-mandatory background processes. Right? We have this mandatory background process and we have this non-mandatory background process. So that's combining together will form your SGA PGA forms your memory architecture. Your mandatory and non-mandatory background process forms your total number of background processes. Combining your memory and background process will form your instance. Right? So that is your instance architecture. If somebody asks what is instance, instance is a logical entity which is a combination of a memory and background process. The memory includes SGA and PGA. SGA is system global area or shared global area. A PGA is a private global area, program global area. And the background process includes mandatory and non-mandatory. And mandatory background process are your SMON, PMON, DBA, log writer, checkpointer. Non-mandatory background process are your archiver, job queue process, and job monitor process, M1, MNLL, lot of background process. So if I can further go down, so let's take in the memory, we have this SGA and PGA. I talked about SGA and PGA. If I take only SGA, in the SGA again there are sub-memory component. Your shared pool, your large pool, your Java pool, your stream pool, your DB buffer cache, your log buffer cache. These are a sub-memory component inside SGA memory. And in the PGA, you have user global area, user global UGA, user global area, and you have your stack space, you have your sort area, you have your cursor area. Right. So again, these are again sub-memory component inside the PGA. Right. And then coming back to background process. In the background process, I have this mandatory background process. The mandatory background process are your SMON, PMON, DB, WR, DB writer, LGWR, log writer, CKPT, checkpoint process. Right. Those are your mandatory background process. And coming to non-mandatory background process, we have archiver, we have job queue processor, we have memory monitor, MNLL, so many background processes for your database instance. Right? We'll talk all of them in our regular classes because each of them has its own definition. But you can expect 99% one of the mandatory question in most of the interview. Can you explain about database architecture? The moment it says all these keywords, whatever I mentioned, it should be at top of your mind. It should be on top of your mouth. You can flowlessly, you can able to pronounce and you can able to explain all of these terms without any issue. Or there's be expected question, what is your SMON do? What is your PMON will do? What is your log writer will do? What is your archive process do? What's the use of shared pool? What's the use of Java pool? What's the use of database buffer cache? What's the UGA? What's the PGA? What's the SGA? What is instance? These are like common interview questions. 99% you can expect in any of the interview. Right? So that is your instance. Instance itself, in simple definition, it's a memory plus background process. Right? That's not enough. That memory again has SGA and PGA. And that background process has a mandatory and non-mandatory. And again, SGA has so many sub-memory component. A PGA has so many sub-memory component. And in the background process, mandatory background process has so many process here. And then your non-mandatory background process also have so many process over here. Right? How can I check these memory processes? You can quickly do this ps-ef grep your DB name. Dev DB is your DB name. Just do the DB name. You can see all the background process. These are like background processes running for this particular single database. Oracle will be having hundreds of background process. But what are important is your PMON, what I just mentioned here, mandatory one. SMON, PMON, DB-rater, log-rater, checkpointer. I can say PMON is a mandatory. And I can say your DB-rater, DBWR is a mandatory. Log-rater is a mandatory. And your SMON is a mandatory. And your checkpoint is a mandatory. So if you kill any one of these mandatory background process, your database instance will go down. And whatever this non-mandatory background process, if you kill, your database instance will be still up and running. Like for example, your archiver is one of the non-mandatory background process. You can see archiver 1, 2, 3, and you have job queue process, MON, MMNL. So all are like non-mandatory. For example, let's say I have this archiver, I have this job queue processes, JQ, and I can kill any one of that. Let's say this one, I can kill this process. Kill -9, the process is killed. Still my database is up and running. I'm able to connect to my database, connected to your 19C database. But if I kill any one of the mandatory background process, let's take PMON, or let's take WRater, that's a DB-rater, or let's say log-rater, or let's say your SMON. These are like mandatory one. If I kill any of these mandatory background process, your database instance will go down. So you killed your one of the mandatory SMON background process. Now your DB is down. So if I try to connect to my database, it will never connect to my database. It says connected to idle instance. Means your instance is down now. So what happened here? Your instance terminated because mandatory background process got killed. That's why yesterday also I showed you demonstration killing that one of the process will gonna go down. Yet now I'm gonna do the startup, right? Before starting up, let's exit and then run the same command. Since your instance goes down, all the background processes are gone, cleared. If I run this one now, nothing is running. Your entire database instance is down. Right, the moment I connect back, I'll do startup. It's gonna assign the memory, whatever the memory allocation we talked about here, SGA and PGA. Inside SGA, all your state pool, large pool, Java pool, all it's gonna assign the memory structure here. Once the memory is assigned, and your all the background process will get started. All the background process are getting started here. But that is a mandatory thing. In order to your instance to start, it has to internally allocate the memory, SG and PJ, and it has to start internally background processes, mandatory and non-mandatory. Then only your instance will be up. Once your instance is up, any user connected to my database instance, they can access my database. Database is nothing but it's just a data files. And that data files includes your system, sysocs, undo, temp, users, and etc. You can create hundreds of data files as per your application. I have EBS application, I can create EBS data files. I have a OBI application, I can create OBI data files. I can create HRMS application, I can create my HRMS data files. So it's all about your application. So these are like default data files will get created. System, sysocs, undo, users, temp, and along with that you can create your application related a number of data files. Right, so that is your in a brief, simple manner how that a database architecture works. As a DBA, we are going to manage, maintain this entire database architecture, make sure that all the services, all the processes are running fine without any issue. And then if anything goes wrong with any of these, it's gonna impact your instance getting crashed, your instance getting shut down. If your instance is down, nobody can access to your database, and that's a complete downtime. All right, so any more questions so far?
Malik, can you share those questions in the chat history?
What questions?
Whatever you wrote down in the notepad, right? Can you
Right,
share it in?
yeah.
Malik, I have a question here. So, is there any way to identify that what are the critical, mandatory processes?
These are the only mandatory background process.
Oh, this is the only, okay.
Right. Other than this, whatever it is non-mandatory.
Okay.
Yeah, Malika, I want to know that what is the logic of the flashback? Just like that, we have two type of flashback on and
Different,
flashback
that is
off.
not now. We have a separate chapter flashback. We'll talk on our regular classes.
Malik, one
Okay,
question.
what is the role of the undo in the flashback? Any role of the undo for the flashback?
Right. We need a undo to do a flashback.
Okay.
Am I audible, Malik?
Yeah.
Yeah. My question was, in your experience, have you ever faced a scenario where you had to size the SGA or to
That's
change the sizing of
one
the
of
PGA?
that's one of our regular activity. It means right now I define my SGA and PGA 3 GB, 2 GB, and over a period of time, as your business grows, we have to tune our SGA and PGA. And again, to tuning your SGA and PGA, we have Oracle has made so much advanced technologies in that. In prior to your 10G and prior to your 11G version, as a DBA, we used to manually assign all the SGA and PGA. Now we no need to do it. We have something called automatic memory management. So you just set your memory component, like I want automatic memory management. So I'm going to define my 10 GB as my database memory. And Oracle is smart enough to assign this 10 GB. Okay, let's assign 6 GB to my SGA and 4 GB to my PGA. And inside that 6 GB, okay, let's assign 1 GB here, 0.5 MB here, 1 GB here, 2 GB here. Internally, Oracle will take care of that if you enable this automatic memory management. That's one of our best practice or recommendation. If you want to
Okay.
assign your own, you have to manually calculate and assign that. Right?
And
That
that's
is
the
one.
initialization parameter?
Yeah, we have init file. We can set it in the init file.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
So
thanks.
yeah, there's other concept as well. That is one way. Like, you often get areas where you need to increase your SGA, PGA. You need to tune your memory. So we have seen it many customers, especially in your development servers where you'll be having very limited memory. And then we more often get into this setting down few of the databases which are not in use and requesting a regularly increasing the memory of a Linux server. Because like right now in my Linux server here, it has only 11 GB. So it has only 11 GB free space. If my database consumes entire 11 GB, so I need to request my Linux admin to increase the memory on the server so that I can increase memory inside my database. We cannot blindly go ahead and then increase the memory of my database without having a physical memory of your server. Yeah, that is one of our regular activity for a DBA field, tuning your memory. So in order to explain more on that context, we have something called ADDM. So you no need to tune anything. There's a ADDM report inside database. Go ahead and run your ADDM report. ADDM report will itself will glance your history of your database, how it has performed in last 1 week based upon your AWS report. And it's going to recommend you, okay, your database is heavily used. We recommend to set your SGA to 15 GB, PGA to 5 GB. Your ADTM report is one of the smart tool. You can make use of that and you can set your memory.
Hello.
Okay.
Yep.
I have one question that how many number of processes we are able to we are able to connect to our database.
It is all defined inside your database. Again, it will be discussed in the regular classes. You go ahead and then check your show parameter processes. So we have, guys, can you go on a mute if you're not talking or if you don't have any question? So we have the processes parameter inside database, and max I can have my database 375 processes, which includes your end user connection and which includes your the operational, the whatever the background process what we started here, including all of them together. This database can support 375 processes. So if your processes are limited, like reached limit, so you can get error message like this. Oracle.
Yes.
process max
Actually,
limit reached.
that is the process. Yeah, that is the session. I think so. Session.
I'm
Yeah,
talking
the
what
number
I
of sessions. Yeah.
what I explained. Number of process is a 375, which includes
Okay.
your local processes, operational processes, plus your end user connection. One user connection to my database, it's gonna start one process. All combining together will have 375 sessions.
No, that is the sessions. That is the maximum sessions. But
We do not
actually,
have
if you
end user connection process limit. I cannot set that end user can connect only 10 sessions or 30 sessions or 100 sessions. Only we have a parameter
okay,
called processes inside database. That processes includes the local whatever this process started for my database. At default, it will be like around 60 or 70 process you can see, plus your end user connection. If I do WC-L, right now it is 56 default background process are started. If one user connects, one session will get added. It will become 60. If
correct,
100 user connect, it will
correct.
become 160. So all
So
together
I
we
think so.
support
We
375.
can't go to upper 375. Correct.
Right, that's correct.
Actually, I saw one problem that one of my Java developer connected from the threading. They use the multi-threading concept. So on that time, they pass the 50 threads, and at the same time they
Then you will see the
call-
50. Yeah, you can see the 50 processes inside your database.
but actually that goes up to 996 directly increasing by 500. I didn't
Right.
get that, so that's why I asked.
It'll gonna be like that. If you're multi-threading you can use, your process will be like multi-threaded.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And based on what this 375 is determined, Malik? Is it
That's
based
a
on the
default.
server capacity?
It's a
Default.
default.
And it will be increased based on what?
Yeah, you have to define. Like as I said, this is one of the example. You're gonna get this particular
Okay.
message. The simple that process is a dynamic parameter. You can do alter system set process. How much you want? 100,000, 2,000, 10,000.
Okay.
You can set it.
Okay, default we can change it. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
What type of study material we require in parallel with your videos and your sessions?
We have all the study materials in our Google Drive.
Okay. No other book will be required.
No.
Okay.
Malik, if I want to increase the process, so do we need to increase any memory or any we need to increase
Right.
it, or
Yeah, the process will depend upon your SGA and PGA. You cannot blindly. Right now here my
Correct.
database has a SGA and PGA. I can say my SGA is 2 GB and PGA is 1 GB, and my process are set to 375. I cannot go and then increase it to 5,000 or 6,000. That internally depending upon my SGA and PGA memory component.
Do we have any formula on that?
No, we don't have any formula.
So
All right.
based on experience, we need to increase that.
Right. Right. Let's quickly see here. Right now, I'll try to set this one. Right now, I'll try to do alter system set my processes. I can try to set around 10,000 scope equal to both. Again, we'll discuss this scope equal to both and all in our regular classes. So it says the processes installation parameter cannot be modified. Maybe it's a not a dynamic parameter. I can say SP file. So process got changed, and now if I try to start my database, it will not start. This process is directly depending upon your SG and PJ memory component. So you have to make sure that you have to set gradually increase your process. Right now it is 375, make it to 500 or make it to 1,000, and then increase one by one. Otherwise, you may end up with your database is not getting started.
Yeah, Malika, I want to know what is the just like that scope is equal to both, scope is equal
We'll
to
talk in our regular classes. We'll talk in our regular classes.
No, actually, how we can find out that we can use
Again,
this
we'll
parameter in the
yeah, we have regular classes. I'm going to talk about that. This parameter has a property is sys modifiable. If it says yes, then you can insert it. Right? We'll discuss in
Okay,
our regular classes.
okay.
All right. So any more questions? That's all I wanted to cover it for today. If anyone has any questions or queries, we'll spend few more minutes. Otherwise, we're good to wrap it up for today.
Malik, I have just
Malik.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, Malik.
Yep.
This is Sada. I just pinged you a request. Please respond to that.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so Malik, so is is there any facility to means we set up that SG and PJ memory manually?
Is there any facility means?
We can set that storage for that you said not 2 GB for SG and 3 GB
Right.
for 3 GB.
It's a DBA job. We are going to tune that one. We are going to set that.
And same goes for means storage, right?
Storage is not in our case. Storage will be with your Linux admin who is going to add a storage and who is going to
infra team
going to increase or decrease.
So you mean to say that so if my server is capacity of 100 GB storage, so all will be utilized for my
Right.
DB.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah, Malik, I want to know, just like that, you have made a script that we can find all the information, just like that. If you have any issue in the undo temp, you have any issue in the performance tuning, so we have a script that we can run on the database and find out the details which SQL ID, which undo session are creating the issue. Okay, so
Right.
this type of script you will say.
Right.
Okay. Actually, we have found lot of issue in the undo table space, that 10155 issue. So we want to check which SQL ID are creating the issue in our database. With behalf of that SQL ID, so we will tell to developers that you have to tune
Right.
that SQL
Yeah.
ID.
We'll all discuss in our regular classes. You can post your whatever questions or queries. If there's any related automation script and all, I can share with you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So any more questions, guys, before we wind up? Again, who are interested, feel free to reach out to me or drop me an email. I'm happy to answer your any of further questions or queries. And I have few more minutes. If you have anything to ask or any particular questions or queries, maybe or anything you faced in your interview or any of such those things, feel free to ask here. This is an open forum.
Can I ask if can I get the recording from yesterday, because I think I missed the dates from this site.
Yeah, you can ping
Eastern
me in
time.
my WhatsApp number. I can share the detail.
All right, thanks.
All right. All right, guys. Let's wrap it up today. Let's connect on Monday with our regular classes. And all the best and happy learning, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malika. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.